The Department of Public Health and Human Services is pleased to bring you Aging Horizons. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, fraud, legal issues, veterans benefits, and caregiving. Aging Horizons is a program dedicated to inform and prepare Montanans on these timely issues, making a difference to you and your loved ones. Here now is today's program host.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Aging Horizons. Today we have a very special guest with us. We're going to be talking about APS, Adult Protective Services. We'll be talking about some of the legislative changes that happened this year. And so we're also going to be talking about winter blues. So what I want you all to do is get your coffee, stay tuned, we will be right back.
Hey caregivers, did you know that respite time is your time? How will you spend it?
We love to get outdoors, so if we have any free time, that's pretty much where you can find us.
Bailey Tolson, East Helena.
We love to hike. Any chance we get, we're out there. And of course, there's always date night.
Montana Lifespan Respite. Respite for caregivers. It's okay to need it. It's okay to want it. It's okay to get it. To learn if you're eligible, call 1-800-224-6034.
We love date night.
Medicare loses $60 million in Montana each year, $70 billion nationally. Medicare processes 4.5 million claims a day. They don't know who your doctor is, but you do. Mistakes can happen. Read your Medicare statements and call Montana Senior Medicare Patrol if you see anything unexpected. 1-800-551-3191. This project is supported by a grant by the Administration for Community Living.
I think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
I was the last guy you'd expect to get diabetes. I was a competitive runner and I always took care of myself. So when I was diagnosed, it kind of threw me. But it's really encouraging to know I'm not alone with it. There are a lot of other people going through the same things as I am. It takes some effort. You have to keep after it. Exercise, meds, and diet are the key. But there are a lot of folks who want me to succeed. Diabetes is not the end of the world. With effort and attitude, you can have a normal life.
We're back. Welcome to Aging Horizons. This is a program brought to you by the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services. And today we'll be talking about Adult Protective Services. We'll be talking about legislative changes. We'll be talking about isolation, the disconnect. And our special guest today is Trevor Tangent. He's the Bureau Chief for Adult Protective Services. Trevor, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, so let's get right into this because I know we have some exciting topics to address. So, APS, tell us in a nutshell, what is APS?
Yeah, so APS is a state-funded program. It stands for Adult Protective Services. So I'm the Bureau Chief for APS.
Okay.
What APS does is we investigate any and all allegations of abuse, neglect, and exploitation of vulnerable adults in Montana.
Okay.
So if we have an intake crew who receives phone calls, who processes online referrals into our intake, and they assign it to field staff who would be investigators across Montana. And then we meet with folks, address the allegations that were provided, and try to find evidence to support or refute. We also assist in providing referrals for the vulnerable adult if it's something that can help them. There's another group we have as well. So there's guardianship in Montana.
Okay.
So state-appointed guardians, we have a group of social service workers who manage, act as agent of the state for guardianship for those individuals.
For the adults?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay, like I heard, we made some changes, with the legislature made some changes. And so what are some of these changes? Let's look at House Bill 532. What is House Bill 532?
Yeah, so there was some very important legislative pieces that came through in the 2025 legislature. House Bill 532 is one of them. So what that does, in a nutshell, kind of a high-level overview, Traditionally, our elder abuse statutes were housed in Title 52. It's a part of the Montana Code Annotated. It wasn't widely known. It was a little confusing on how to read some of those statutes across the 56 counties.
Right.
So what we did to make that easier to read and hopefully increase prosecution moving forward with these type of cases is we are moving those Title 52 statutes, which were siloed, unknown, a bit confusing, and they're moving them under Title 45, which is the crimes against persons, which is really where law enforcement and prosecutors live. A lot of well-known statutes are in those, and so they're going to marry those elder abuse statutes up with the well-known statutes in 45.
Thank you. And there's another House Bill 743.
Yeah, 743, that's another great bill. So what that does is we see a lot of exploitation cases at APS. So vulnerable adults being exploited for their money or property. Somebody kind of weasels the way into a will, has the vulnerable adult sign some sort of document that gives over some of their property or money to somebody else, and really not understanding what's happening along the process. Unfortunately, we see that all too often. So what this does is it creates a tracking mechanism for these cases. So when we have a case of exploitation and we investigate and find evidence to suggest that this is occurring, when we refer that to a county attorney's office, we track that case and which county attorney we referred it to. So every even-numbered year, APS sends that report of all the exploitation cases we had in the state to the Attorney General's office. And then on vice versa, every year, each county attorney within the state, all 56, will send a report to the AG's office as well, as far as showing what they did with that case.
Right.
So we have some accountability. We can show what happened with the case and make sure that they don't fall off.
It didn't fall through the cracks.
Cracks, unfortunately.
Yeah. Okay, the final bill here is Senate Bill 296.
Yes, so another great bill. So what this bill does is it creates enhanced penalties for those individuals who perpetrate against vulnerable adults who are in facility type settings. So if you have a vulnerable adult, we'll say in assisted living, and the perpetrator, as we call them, or the bad actor, is a volunteer or an employee of that same facility, and they perpetrate against this individual, let's say that they steal some of their belongings or steal money. So what this bill does is not only is that person charged with theft, but there's an enhancement penalty that gets tacked onto that because they offended against a vulnerable adult.
There should have been, because they're trusted people.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they violated that trust. Yeah. Wow, thanks, Trevor. This is awesome. Now, as we get into the holidays, what are some of the concerns your department has? What should we be concerned with? Because we talk about winter blues.
Yep. So as we get into the holiday season, we see an uptick in cases of neglect, primarily self-neglect. So we look at caregiver neglect as well as self-neglect, neglect across the board.
Right.
A lot of times what we find is that's due to isolation and loneliness. Two separate things, kind of connected. So looking at the demographic of Montana, we're a big state, fairly low population. So we have folks spread across, living far out in the sticks or in very frontier areas. And so those folks find themselves in some cases to be isolated. They don't have a lot of contact with many folks throughout the week. And so these feelings of being isolated, not having social contact with others can really get to people. The other part is loneliness. So loneliness is really, it's that person's, there's a want and a need for some connection, some human connection, and they're not able to get it. Even though some folks could be surrounded by, could be in a group home setting, could be surrounded by people, but they're not getting the contact that they wish they could.
Yes, okay, so thanks. That was a perfect break because we're about to go to a break right now. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're talking to Trevor Tangen, the Bureau Chief for Adult Protective Services.
Elder abuse is a growing problem, and it's happening right here in our Montana communities. At least 1 in 10 older adults are victims of physical or emotional abuse, financial exploitation, or neglect. To get help or report elder abuse, call your local area agency on aging or Adult Protective Services at 1-844-277-9300.
I have so many questions about power of attorney.
Well, some powers of attorney are for finances and others are for healthcare decisions.
A power of attorney designates an agent who would make decisions on your behalf.
While making a power of attorney, you have the ability to control your agent's power.
You also have the ability to decide when that POA would take effect.
Wait, am I giving away all my rights?
Power of attorney isn't a license to make any decision for you, just those that you've specified.
Your agent should be somebody that's working in your best interest, but it should also be somebody that you would trust.
What if they try to abuse their power?
Protective measures like third-party accounting, secondary signatures, defined spending and gifting limits can help protect against financial exploitation. An agent's powers can always be limited by a customized power of attorney, and they can be revoked by you or the court if the power of attorney is abused.
So carefully drafted estate planning documents can help ensure that your finances are monitored, but not abused.
If you or someone you know is being exploited, please report to Aging Services Bureau at 844-277-9300 or the Legal Service Developer at 1-800-332-2272. This message sponsored by the DPHHS Aging Service Bureau.
I've been shooting since I was young. It's something I've always enjoyed. I wasn't feeling like myself, but my friend noticed. He asked if he could hold onto my guns temporarily. At first, I was a little shocked, but then I agreed. I think he saved my life that day.
Hello, everyone. We're back, and we've been talking to Trevor Tangent, the Bureau Chief for Adult Protective Services, and we're talking about the winter blues, the legislative changes, and so right now we're going to be talking about isolation and loneliness in the older Montanans. So back to you, Trevor. Yeah, as you were saying, you were talking about the loneliness and isolation in older adults. Please.
Yeah, so we kind of differentiated on the two, leaving off with the loneliness. You know, as I was saying, you could be surrounded by people, but maybe you just don't find a connection with any of those people that you're surrounded by. Mm-hmm. You could still feel feelings of loneliness, like there's nobody that you can talk to. Yeah. And those really can have some severe consequences on a person's mental, physical health. Some causes of that disconnection, mm-hmm. You know, it could be loss of a spouse. So somebody you did find comfort in, were able to, you know, have some companionship. They may not be there anymore. Life transitions. I know, you know, when you're out in the workforce, you spend a good majority of your time with your fellow staff, employees, others, mm-hmm. You know, that you can converse with and have that. And so divorce, exactly. Yeah. Right. And so in the workforce, you know, at some point in time, we all retire, hopefully. Right. And so you kind of end up missing that in some cases. Yeah. And so you don't have that connection every day.
That's why some people don't retire. They keep going because they want that connection.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah, so you can, you know, now you retire, you find yourself at home, and if you haven't figured out ways to fill up your time, you could definitely feel that sense of loneliness and disconnect.
And also part of that disconnect, physical and sensory decline?
Yeah, so there are, you know, if you're somebody that's dealing with, you know, some physical incapacities, frailties, maybe impaired mobility, some cognitive decline, it may be hard to connect with people given those things. I mean, if you're, you know, just for instance, if you go to a basketball league and that's your connection time with other individuals, you play basketball and you hurt your shoulder or, you know, you have some sort of injury, now you can't do that, and so you're missing that connection.
You bet. You bet. Geographic distance from loved ones.
Yes. So families are spread across the United States and sometimes the countries.
Yeah.
So, not everybody, as soon as your kids leave the house, it's not that they're going to stay in the same town. They may move across several states over. And so just navigating that distance, the holiday travel is definitely difficult.
It is, indeed.
So you may miss time, Thanksgiving, Christmas, those important holidays, and not be able to be with family.
Yeah, especially when we consider those Thanksgiving and Christmas as family time.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't gotten adjusted to the fact that our kids have their own families now, and they're moving on. So let's talk about some of the serious health toll.
Yeah, so there's studies out there. One that comes to mind is it likens really the loneliness, isolation toll on the body. It likens that to an individual who's a smoker. Just with the physical effects, it affects your cognitive functioning, mental health, your immune system. It's shown to increase mortality rates. So really some detrimental stuff. We think about it as maybe just a psychological issue, but it's definitely tied to physical.
Okay, so let's look at how do we find that connection back. Because we discussed the disconnect, the isolation, we talk about the loss and all of that, and the geographic distance. So how do we connect them back?
What we can do if we have family or friend that maybe fall into, that's aging and that fall into this, what we're talking about here, make it intentional. Make it intentional maybe once a week to reach out to this person, walk across the street, converse with your neighbor.
Yeah.
I think if we can make a more intentional act of making a phone call, just meeting with our elderly individuals or aging population, I think that definitely makes a difference in their day. And we see it. I started out in APS as an investigator, and oftentimes when I would go meet with a vulnerable adult, before we can even get in the meat and potatoes, I'm hearing about their entire life. They love to tell you about their successes,
so lonely.
Vietnam veterans, and you may have been their only contact for the week or even the month. And I think it really made a difference when you just sat there and was a listening ear.
Right.
So that's a way, we can utilize these video chats and stuff that are coming out, the new technology. So, utilize FaceTime, help them set up and show them how to answer a call that comes in on FaceTime. You get that face connection even if you can't be in person. I think it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it's a big difference, you're right.
And it's not just a holiday thing. I think, if it's something we're going to make intentional, then we carry on and we continue to do it. And I think if we all look at, we could probably all do a better job of reaching out to our loved ones who may be isolated or lonely.
No doubt about it. You're totally right. I think we all have fallen short when it comes to, checking up on our loved ones and our elderly loved ones, and we need to do that because there are crazies out there that are trying to scam, just do the things that aren't right. So
yeah, and that's a good point with the technology, utilizing it. I would say utilize it, but be careful. If you're seeking contact with people that you don't know through chat groups, that sort of thing,
that's dangerous.
Please exercise caution and inform and educate your loved ones if they are going to start doing that, because it does turn into, romance scams, that sort of thing, and you can find yourself in a worse way. Yep.
You bet. So, hey, Trevor, thank you. We got to go for a break. So, I want you to stay tuned because we're talking to Trevor Tangent, the Bureau Chief for Adult Protective Services, and he's giving us some valuable information. So stay tuned.
If you knew your next-door neighbors couldn't afford to stay warm this winter, you'd want to help, right? Thousands of our fellow Montanans and Montana businesses are stepping up with a tax-deductible donation to Energy Share Montana. a nonprofit that helps more than 3,000 of your Montana neighbors stay warm this winter. Find out how you can help. Call 888-779-7589 or go to EnergyShareMT.com. Thanks, Montana.
Can you say ombudsman?
Ombudsman.
Benson? Uma Doodlesman? Fortunately, you don't have to say it right to get the help of a long-term care ombudsman. If you or a loved one reside in assisted living or long-term care, an ombudsman can help resolve any issue. And these services are completely free and confidential. Now, why don't you try that again?
Ombudsman.
You've probably seen some big-name celebrities on your TV lately talking about all the Medicare benefits you're missing out on. But the insurance companies who are paying for these ads may be pushing benefits not available in Montana. Fortunately, help is available from a friendly state health insurance assistance program counselor who can help you sort it all out. It's free, and we screen everyone for eligibility regardless of your zip code. It's Montanans helping Montanans. Call today.
Every 65 seconds, someone is affected with Alzheimer's or other dementias. Many become isolated at a time when help is most needed. If you or someone you love is affected, help is available, both for people with memory loss and their caregivers. Memory loss can feel frightening, but you are not alone. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
We're back, and we will continue our discussion with Trevor Tangent, APS Bureau Chief. We've been talking about APS, Adult Protective Services, and some of the winter blues our adult population experience. So, Trevor, thanks for gracing us with your knowledge today. Now, we discussed the disconnect, and we touch on the connection back. So finding our way back to that connection, how does that process work?
Yeah, so I think we had left off on making it intentional as far as what can we do.
Right.
So making it intentional as far as video chats, visits, and phone calls. There's some other pieces to that too. Is active listening.
Yes.
Encouraging when we do reach out, encouraging older adults talk about their feelings. You've heard the saying, "You have two ears and one mouth" for a reason. Listen twice as much as you talk. So
right.
let them tell their stories. And if you listen and pay attention, they're actually quite captivating. And I always enjoyed when I was out in the field as an investigator, hearing all the stories that they had to tell. Community engagement is another one. Encourage the person, maybe go to a senior center,
to get involved,
find others that are in similar situations. You find yourself connecting better with vets to vets, or vice versa, people who are going through your same situation.
Right.
Find some connection. Volunteering throughout the community. I know that there's always volunteer activities, and you feel so much better about getting out and getting some sunshine wherever it is, and helping out in your community. Faith-based groups, they're all over, and you can join and find that connection that you're looking for. So those are just a couple ways that we can help.
So and let's talk about some of the when your investigator go out and they find abuse, or that an elderly person has been abused. What's your process? What do you do?
Yeah, so we have that, and we touched on it in the beginning. We have the intake piece where we process the report coming in. It gets assigned out to field staff, generally, investigator staff. They have certain time frames depending on what type of case it is, the immediacy for getting face-to-face contact. So those can range from 24 hours. Within 24 hours, need to meet with the alleged victim, within 5 days, or within 10 days. And so depending on what the concern is, dictates our priority level, exactly.
Okay.
And so what that investigator does is they'll go out and meet with the alleged victim unannounced. And that's important because we want to see how that person is currently living before they have a chance to clean up and make things look a lot better than they actually are.
Right.
So we show up unannounced, friendly, just generally, a little maybe a collared shirt, and but non-threatening, and we just want to talk with the alleged victim and see if the allegation we believe is occurring or not. And so we're constantly trying to find evidence, talk to witnesses, talk to neighbors, anybody and everybody we can who may have some information to help us, we'll talk to them. And at case conclusion, what we need to do is come to a finding, whether we believe it happened, which is indicated, not indicated on the flip side, or inconclusive. Maybe we just don't have enough evidence. So in a case like you're talking about with abuse, that is going to mirror up, if we believe abuse happened, more than likely it's going to fit into a criminal statute.
Okay.
And so we don't have law enforcement jurisdiction. We don't have arrest powers, that sort of thing. We are civil investigators. So what we'll do is we'll take that nice investigation, hopefully wrapped up in a nice, in a nice bow, and we can hand that off to law enforcement and say, here's what we found. We are an open book with law enforcement. We give them our evidence, we give them our witness statements, we give them audio, video recordings, everything. And then
you get to testify.
We do testify quite often. Yes, we've made our way into the news quite a few times this year on big cases, a lot of exploitation cases and abuse, where it started with APS. We are the ones that got the case and we ran with it, and then worked with our law enforcement partners and got prosecution,
and got some
which is great.
solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's the other piece to that too, which is equally as important, is on an abuse case, sometimes it's a loved one. Sometimes the loved one is also the caretaker. And so if you remove that person from the equation, now you have a need that's not being filled.
Right.
And so that's the other part to our job, is to find a caregiver of sorts, or make referrals for somebody who can help fill that need. So it's the holistic approach. There's the prosecution side, but then there's the taking care of the person side, which is something that we do. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. So let's look at it. Of all the different areas you serve, you got elder abuse, you say you got abandonment, which is the most that you receive?
So
scams.
The facts are very fresh on my mind coming out of the 2025 legislation. So we provided a lot of this. So in 2024, we had roughly 14,000 allegations of abuse, neglect, and exploitation just in Montana.
Whoa.
And what's really concerning about that is there's some stats on the federal side that say only 1 in 23 cases ever come to light. So really, I think about that, and it's kind of staggering when I think that for every 14,000 of these, there were 22
that did
per allegation that never came to light, due to a number of different factors. But across the board, what we see kind of tipping the scale more is the self-neglect, caregiver neglect type cases. That's what we see the most of, followed by close second exploitation, followed by abuse.
Wow. Yep. So Trevor, I want to thank you on behalf of my audience. I know you provided a lot of valuable information here today. We've been talking to Trevor Tangen. He's the Bureau Chief for Adult Protective Services, and we're just so grateful that he was able to provide the information he did. Thank you, and see you next week.
Special thanks to the Department of Public Health and Human Services for their continued support. Hosts on Aging Horizons are program specialists at the Montana Office on Aging. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions. For more information about Aging Horizons, call the Department of Public Health and Human Services toll-free at 800-332-2272.